if Europe does not unite militarily, socially, economically, then and democratically, then Europe will play no role in the G8 or any role in the world. In fact, Europe may collapse. But by 2050, if the demographics, uh, present demographics, are reversed, then Europe could inherit a global superpower or hyperpower status such as the United States, but in partnership with the United States, I would hope. The United States could itself have many secessionist movements from Mexican immigration in the southwest, um, but it will still remain a hyperpower because it is better at getting immigrants to assimilate into its society. What we must do is to reverse the demographic trend. Ironically, a Muslim dominated Europe, where there is large scale convergence to Islam, would actually, in effect, destroy Europe as a culture, but maybe save the European of Roman, Nordic, Celtic people. Although would surely be a lot of intermarriages between Muslims from Arabia and Europe. I'm not proposing this as a solution. That would be my worst nightmare. But because the Bin Laden and Saudi royal crime families would thus dominate Europe with their billions and billions of dollars of oil, banking and drug money and construction money. What can we do to prevent this? Well, as I said in part one, we should develop intelligence organisations based on the use of good intelligence information, of course, but in terms of actual war fighting, on the use of boxing and jiu-jitsu and knives and poison to get rid of extremist groups within the immigrant population. This would only take out a fraction of the population that threatens Europe and the United States, because the minority of people who control the wider immigrant population, just as with any organised crime group, are extremely small and extremely committed to what they do. The Saudi crime family, for instance, may have only hundreds of thousands of people, or the Bin Ladens have 100,000 people, considering that we've killed 52,000 of their operatives in the wars against Al Qaeda. So they are a small group of people, but they control millions and millions of people through social traditions and also economic incentives and de-incentives to be part of what is mostly, I'm speaking about the extreme Muslim, extreme Zionist and extreme forms of Christian religious fundamentalism which are out there, which are a threat to our culture. But how do we arm Europe? Well, long-term growth of the military will mean curtailing of the standards of living of which the military is there to protect, which is a paradox. We don't want to go so far down the route of militarism, Keynesian militarism, as the United States has done, but we want to keep perhaps a 50-50 ability to produce both military and civilian technologies and services and goods to maintain long-term survival of the population of Europe. This will, of course, include people who are people from immigrant populations, but to assimilate into our population, perhaps between 2 and 4% of the birth rate. But it's more a social way of doing things, as I would say, because I'm a European, of fighting back. For instance, allowing women who go to university to have free university degrees if they become pregnant and bring their child to term, or people who have larger families would get free university education. All these things can be done to and also through the welfare system to help people have larger families, because at the moment the um, the the actual use of education is preventing people from going to work before they're 25, because the most expensive consumer goods you could have, if you want to be sort of dehumanistic, is to have a child at the moment, which is completely the reverse of what um, the economy should be all about. The economy should be about population growth in Europe and the Western and advanced countries, such as America, such as Japan, such as Canada, such as Australia and New Zealand, and the advanced parts of South Africa. Um, we will need, as I said in the Westmark video, to make ourselves eventually one Western culture and one Western world, with a shared currency, a shared military, a shared government, to maintain ourselves against the growth of China and India. If they do not implode, as I said in the first vid, we would not want them to implode, because although if you take a completely evil view that their populations would crash, we would lose trading partners, we would lose people who could convert to Western values such as social democracy or American capitalism. What we need to do is to be ready in case Europe does need to expand into its peripheral regions, such as the Arab Spring countries, to maintain, as we should have done in Libya. We should have put ground troops in Libya, in my view, to help the people there get democracy. But this might have been seen as Western intervention in another Arab country. But what Europe wants to do is to create a series of unions around the world, which are interconnected through rail and air travel, high-speed rail, and to build them up so that people do not want to leave their own countries because the standard of living is so good. Now, Europe may have to forgo some of its own standard of living if we take a militaristic route to keep our long-term survival. So we're looking at things in the long run, and what will be the better future for our children. Now, the Japanese did a similar thing after World War II. Their country was completely smashed. Our country physically and materially is not smashed, but our culture is under threat from immigration. Our social democracy is under threat because of the pressure of millions of uneducated people coming into the Europe and settling and not working. What we need to do is to make social policies that benefit the Nordic, Roman and Celtic population of Europe and the United States and other advanced Western and advanced countries. The Japanese were dynamic in what they did. They forego their own consumption to make the next generation better and have a better standard of living. They did this through a postmodern, non-militaristic route.